Hello, my name is Latifa Naimi. My co-author is Dr. Mirela Alistar, and I will be presenting the qualitative study Understanding Cultural and Religious Values Relating to Awareness of Women's Intimate Health Among Arab Muslims. For this study, we interviewed 16 participants who identified as Arab and Muslim to understand their cultural and religious values, ways in which these values have influenced their awareness of women's intimate health, as well as their past experiences and current attitudes about women's health issues. We performed a thematic analysis which revealed some interesting shared experiences in the influence of culture and religion on women's health awareness. I'll be sharing some of the themes we uncovered later. Finally, we reflected on how we can use these themes to enhance research and design in the women's health space for Arab Muslim communities. Women's intimate health is a topic traditionally avoided quite universally because of its taboo nature due to being linked to sexuality, an area that is typically viewed as one that needs to be hidden from the public. This raises health concerns for women all around the world. The less awareness a person has about their bodies, the less they're able to seek medical attention or preventative care. In Arab communities, approaching women's health can be different as the culture presents its own particularities. As a Muslim-majority region, many people in the Arab world are influenced to varying degrees by Islamic teachings and by long-upheld ancestral values. The pressures of maintaining familial ties also plays a major role. I am a Muslim woman from Qatar, an Arab country in the Middle East, and one which prides itself on holding on to traditional values. As such, I have a personal experience with the challenges of navigating cultural and religious values that are important to me with systems in place that may control knowledge acquisition in the women's health space. This is why my research goals focus on HCI research with and for people from Arab and Muslim communities by researching ways to incorporate cultural and religious values into designing HCI solutions, keeping in mind that Western methods and solutions may not always fit. Research and design efforts are on the rise in HCI to destigmatize knowing and interacting with the intimate body, but recommendations for people in the Western world may not hold very well with individuals whose non-secular beliefs and practices permeate many aspects of their lives, including how they approach learning about women's intimate health. For example, modesty is highly regarded in Islam, so speaking openly on matters considered private, namely intimate health, may clash with that value. We are motivated by HCI researchers for communities in the global south, such as Mustafa, Sarkar, and Tuli, and their co-authors, who understood the need for considering the differences in values and actions of individuals in the global south in the intimate health domain. We wanted to start the conversation in the Arab Muslim world. Efforts like these are why decolonizing computing and HCI spaces are important endeavors. Decolonization work in HCI advocates for considering participants' values and lived experiences in attempts to design technological and digital solutions. To that end, we aim to find answers for these research questions. What are some perceived similarities and distinctions between religious and cultural motivations, and what aspects of religion or culture can we lean into for the main goal of improving women's intimate health and well-being? How do family members' beliefs influence Arab Muslim women's openness to seeking knowledge and discussing intimate health? What categories of technology, if any, would aid in the support of increasing knowledge about women's intimate health? We recruited 16 participants who identified as Arab and Muslim. We conducted one-to-one interviews on Zoom that ranged from half an hour to an hour 15. Being fluent in Arabic and adhering to Islamic beliefs and practices, I ran these interview sessions myself in the participants' preferred language. I translated and validated transcripts taken by Zoom throughout the recruitment process. We started our thematic analysis by creating codes for our interview transcripts on in vivo and then grouping them into common themes when we observed patterns. The coding and grouping into themes steps were done iteratively as we recruited more people. The 16 participants consisted of 10 who identified as female and 6 identified as male. They were quite varied in their self-described Arab identities. These include Qatar, Palestine, Syria, Kuwait, Iraq, Jordan, Sudan, and Egypt. We also asked about marital status, where 11 of them have never been married and 5 were married. This is relevant for talking about things like sexual health, as it is a topic that isn't typically broached until one is married or about to get married. Here we'll present some of our most interesting findings from our interviews. We invite you to read our paper for a deep dive into our uncovered insights. Some of our participants reported learning about menstruation and reproduction in science classes or through school-sanctioned seminars to a limited extent, but most of them confirmed that their exposure was mostly through Islamic teachings on the matter. Both our male and female participants were aware of menstruation and sexual intercourse through Islamic teachings because they're mentioned in religious texts, as they affect other acts of worship, as highlighted by this participant. Religion doesn't really talk a lot about menopause and pregnancy, but you can find a lot of hadith and sunnah about periods, because having your period and having a sexual relationship affects other parts of Islam, like your prayer, your fasting, and all of these. So you have to refer to them in order to know, are you doing it right? For example, a woman on her period should not pray or fast. This leads us to the frequently mentioned concept of ghusl, which is a form of ritual cleansing to be performed after certain situations, such as after a period ends or after a sex act. Ghusl was noted by the majority of our participants. Sex and self-pleasure were topics regarded by participants as the least comfortable to talk about in the women's intimate health spectrum. One shared experience mentioned by participants is the common practice of doctors in one of the Arab countries asking whether a patient was married rather than asking if they were sexually active. As this participant notes, I remember the first time I went to a gynecologist. They asked me if I was married or not when I became sexually active, so I made sure the doctors weren't Arab doctors or Muslim doctors so I can openly say, hey, that's a strange question to ask. This participant hints at discomfort when admitting sexual activity to doctors who are also Arab or Muslim. The following is a rare, vulnerable confession from one of our female participants with regards to feeling sexual urges and desiring pleasure. I later found out from my friends that apparently they did have that kind of sex education for guys. They did tell them you'll experience urges or pleasures, or he'll experience something such as wet dreams. No one tells these things to girls because they don't expect women to have urges or women to grow up to want or desire pleasure, because pleasure is never a conversation. There was this attachment to the concept of virginity that was very intense. There's the shame that comes with feeling pleasure. Desire, even doing things such as masturbation, felt very shameful. The notion that men were told about sexual urges at some point in adolescence was confirmed by one of our male participants, who was taught that these urges happen and what to do about them from a religious perspective, such as performing ghusl. In the category of cultural influence lies behavior in social environments. Participants noted certain factors that have influenced how comfortable they would feel talking or asking about women's intimate health. First, the most important to them was the perception of not feeling judged by present company, but they wouldn't typically signal their own openness to start with. Second, our female participants noted that having any conversation about a woman's intimate health is a lot easier in the presence of other women, or people they felt were their peers, like if they were similar ages. With family, participants talked about facing initial awkwardness when mentioning being on their period with fathers and brothers. However, most of our female participants agreed that it became easier with time. One participant still feels that it is a challenge with her father. The idea of even buying the menstrual pads is off topic. It's outrageous. Yeah, my dad would never buy that stuff. He finds it weird and embarrassing. My brothers buy them for me. I taught them to not feel weird about it. Finally, some participants said that the purpose of discussing women's intimate health was significant to whether they would feel more comfortable. If the purpose was educational, informative, or in a professional context, they were more likely to feel more at ease. Also falling under cultural values is privacy. Privacy has been a value explicitly highlighted by most of our participants in several forms, whether it was in reference to their own privacy or respecting the privacy of others. As noted by one participant, sex is associated with family life, and family life is very private, so it's something that I just have to respect. I don't want to be the odd person at the table talking about it. Another aspect is preserving privacy in the presence of different genders. For example, women are much more open about talking about menstruation in the presence of other women, but generally shy away from any mention of the topic in the presence of men, partially to maintain social decorum and partially to respect others' value of privacy, even if they didn't care as much about it themselves. Finally, one aspect of protecting privacy is in the public sphere, in the form of maintaining public decency by not oversharing, especially in very public situations like on social media, where it might be propagated to very large audience. Due to limited exposure to women's intimate health in the real world, our participants talked about how their journeys were largely fueled by curiosity and took to tools available online. These included Google searches that ended at WebMD and Healthline, forum and discussion platforms like Quora and Reddit, Arabic women's forums. These were forums for Arab women, where users had to confirm that they were women to access the content, and included a section for married women, where users could ask and share information about sex. Another category of online resource were websites for Islamic rulings. The purpose of accessing these is to get some clarity on how specific intimate health occurrences affected other acts of worship, as clarified by this participant. Sometimes you want to know things about intimate health in an Islamic way, like ovulation is considered in Islam istihada, so sometimes people, instead of having a period, they're going to have spotting during their ovulation. Reading about it from an Islamic way makes you realize that, oh, it might be similar to a period, but it's different because you can pray. In the spirit of decolonial thinking and conceptualizing solutions for Arab Muslim populations, reflecting on different aspects of our findings brings to mind the Arabic majlis. A majlis is simply a sitting room where people gather for all kinds of formal or casual occasions. Traditional ones are set up with floor seating and cushions, while more modern ones have seats and sofas. Participants talked about certain conditions that would allow them to feel more comfortable discussing women's intimate health, and the majlis provides a great metaphor for these conditions in fulfilling a culturally sensitive safe space. In a majlis, different contexts exist for how it's held. For instance, attending a formal family majlis that includes elderly relatives will likely involve different language and behaviors than one involving friends. The parallel we draw with the majlis and the safe space is that, just like a majlis, safe spaces can take different forms in different situations, and they're not necessarily wrong simply because there are certain social limitations. The metaphor of a majlis does this by positing that in Arab cultures, all majalis have their place, and all are valued for different reasons. Reflecting on our findings, the components that we've identified that make up a culturally sensitive safe space are space and time, context, language, people, and tools. I'll briefly go into what these each entail with some recommendations for conducting research and designing for people in Arab and Muslim communities. With space and time, this component concerns the disconnect that we observed in the expectations for appropriate time and place for learning different aspects of women's intimate health. Some parents would assume schools would handle it or that their children would learn it from somewhere else. Since there is no clear expectation for the responsibility of education, stakeholders from all potential groups, school, home, clinics, should be involved in researching and designing for women's intimate health education. Context concerns consideration and design for appropriate context. Is the goal to educate or to facilitate casual conversation? Either way, measures should be taken to ensure no boundaries are crossed. We also note how important it is to emphasize our motivation towards education and knowledge-seeking throughout participant engagement and research. Finally, in designing for educational content, support or involvement from local healthcare entities would enhance legitimacy and help to remove stigma. With language, we might benefit from leveraging Quranic terms for intimate health to some extent, due to the important role that Islam plays. Also, limited knowledge of Arabic terms for intimate body parts or processes signifies the importance of incorporating scientific Arabic terms in designing systems to support intimate health awareness. Explicit terms should also be approached with caution and may benefit from testing threshold of tolerance. This component concerns various social dynamics that play a significant cultural role, and it includes perception of the other person or people in a conversation. Most participants place the onus on other people to demonstrate the level of openness to maintain social decorum. Family dynamics, where women had a tendency to hide intimate health issues from fathers or brothers, and gender dynamics showed that women were more comfortable with other women, indicating that designing women-only digital spaces is important. However, even with women, sex still might be a topic with severely limited disclosure. Tools concerns the availability of personal devices and online resources. This is important because it allows for private information seeking without the risk of social embarrassment. In providing these platforms, one feature should be to limit the ability to view other people's interactions, to provide an anonymity and again protect from social embarrassment. Users should also have some control over which of their interactions are displayed and to what extent. For a more in-depth discussion, I'd like to invite you to read our paper. The spirit we'd like to carry forward is to not diminish or look down on more restrictive conditions, rather consider that they have their time and place, and sometimes we can work with that. Thank you for listening, and thank you to my co-author and participants.